Hey everyone, welcome. It's Lucid, and I am joined yet again by Demosthenes.
Hey, folks.
Yeah, so Demosthenes is a longtime friend of the channel. We've put a few of his games up, and Darkside Cookies has been a Hydra partner of mine, and he was in the Satis game, the late age Satis game that went up on the channel sort of recently. So yeah, these two guys are Hydras for Shinuyama. And presumably you've already seen the national overview by this point. We may not have recorded it yet. But yeah, we're going to be talking about a game that they are playing Hydra, and I'm just going to be kind of like co-casting it with them. But we're going to move through it really quickly. So for those who didn't see the national overview, what would be like a couple sentence summary of Shinuyama Demosthenes?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, I would sort of describe it as a very flexible nation. The sort of key centerpiece thing that it has is the Bakemono Sorcerer, which is a recruit anywhere 8-path mage. And they're really expensive, so you may not actually be able to get more of them than the number you'd get from a cap-only mage in some sense. But you always
Right.
have the ability, if you have a pile of gold, to make a bunch more. And so recovering losses is a lot easier than it would with another nation where you're really just limited by your capital commander points. And they're kind of interesting in that they're really powerful. But a lot of use cases, if you just use them as a fire 2, fire 3, or whatever, like they're really expensive for any specific thing. So but it's very flexible. That's sort of the capability that you're
Right.
paying for with this extremely expensive mage.
Yeah, and
Um,
you have a lot of cross paths with them, but they're not very cheap for any specific thing, because that's often the problem with these like really wide path mages is they tend to be a little overpriced for like a specific purpose.
yeah, I guess the other sort of critical thing is there's only 2 sacred units in the nation: the Bakemono Sorcerer and
Right.
the little tiny Bakemono Shaman,
Yeah.
and
None of
tend
the
to want
troops
some
are.
sort of but pretender design that's built around maybe a Mage Bless or potentially other utility like expander capabilities, forging, things like that. You're not going to be able to bless troops to do something really cool. Um,
Yeah.
Uba is also a really fantastic battle mage. And then I think that the overall theme of it is just it's got this incredibly wide toolbox of things. You've got stealthy troops of various levels of quality, about the sort of human bandits and the extremely cheap goblins that are extra cheap in mountains, and that's sort of an important thing for how the nation plays. And then you have sort of the half giant Dai Bakemono and the O Bakemono, who's I think the sort of ogre at the far right is really interesting because they cost almost no resources and recruitment points. You can put like thousands of gold into these if what you need is a lot of ogres with big clubs.
Yeah.
In terms
Yeah,
of
Middle
pretender
Age is
design,
also the era. Middle Age is also the era of amphibious troops, and so Shinuyama technically is an amphibious nation as well, with both access to water mages and access to amphibious troops. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary. So it's basically a scales nation that has a wide range of units in terms of size and function, and some super budget, like ultra budget mages, as well as some like Cadillacs. And they can be good in combat, but they can also be really good as like thugs and super combatants. So,
yeah.
but yeah,
I guess
so
the
you
other sort of
guys,
features for sort of on that overview that are relevant for pretender design is you've got a magic limit +1 and turmoil limit +1. So,
right?
uh, it- um, and magic limit is sort of interesting because one of the features of Shinuyama is that almost none of the units have good magic resistance. I think the Dai Bakemono have 11, and everything else
Right.
is 10 or worse. Bakemono are 8, and so magic skills are really good. They help you speed your research. A lot of your power is in mages, and having them not get tired quickly can be really good for them being able to do more. But at the same time, you open yourself up to risk from astral nations and other nations that can have a lot of sorcery that can sort of exploit the low magic resistance of all of your units.
Yeah.
And so this build is let's lean into lots of magic. And I really, we've sort of maxed every scale other than sort of order turmoil, which could go as high as order 1, and heat, which we've done heat 1. I think like in terms of sort of the interesting decision, heat versus cold is actually very interesting for this nation because you have a really good fire magic, but you've also got pretty good water magic. And the reason I ended up picking heat over cold is actually the map move consideration. So
Yeah.
there's a few units that the nation has that are really mobile. One is the sort of unarmored goblins have 14 map move, and so they can sort
Yeah.
of be scooted around pretty quickly. Basically, everything else is map move 1. Maybe the Obakemono are also kind of fast, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. They're pretty quick. Yeah.
But the other thing is the Uba. They're sort of in their base form. They have 16 map move, but they actually can turn into a stealthy cat with like 22 or something
Right.
as a shape change. And so the ability to sort of scoot those around where I need them quickly, just that feels really valuable. And there's no way to take cold move on the bless to help them for that. So that was sort of how I ended up deciding which of those to do.
Yeah.
But I think there's a very good case for cold on this nation in terms of if you're going to be slow, might as well make everybody else slow with your sort of main army troops. And murdering winter is a thing that could be a very powerful defensive feature for the nation.
Yeah.
The
So,
other
and
sort of
I think the things I'll mention about the bless is just this clearly for the Bakemono sorcerers and the earth mages. So they like doing things like iron skin, and they're going to be pretty high protection. So really, these are two things that are going to negate a lot of the armor negating damage sources, shock and poison. And then the reinvigoration is that's always super useful on both battle mages and thugs. And the MR is probably to help a bit with one of your vulnerabilities. And then unaging, of course, they have the unaging. They're old, so this is really nice on them.
They're grievously old. It is extremely painful how old they are. Like look at their attack skill of 6.
Yeah.
I believe that their attack skill, if they're not old, is 10. Yeah, so all of it, they're getting -4 to sort of every stat from that. And most importantly, the encumbrance is actually kind of interesting to look at because they're actually like a really low base encumbrance chassis at just 2. I think a normal human is 3, but you're not getting any of the benefit of that with old age.
Yeah, unaging is super value on these particular units. So yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's the overview for the Pretender. I mean, it's mostly just scales with some basic stuff.
Yeah. The other thing worth mentioning is I didn't feel comfortable going below 5 Dominion, and a big part of the reason for that is that you only get sort of H1 priests, and so one's options for sort of controlling Dominion are pretty limited, and if you have good skills, you want to be able to spread them. But so we can sort of jump into turn 2. There's 2 mods that we're playing with in this game. So one is Lucen's Improved Casting Eye mod. I personally do not play multiplayer games that do not have that mod. I want my mages to do good stuff. I want my opponent's mages to do good stuff, and it really helps with that.
Yep.
And the second is Trusty Research. So, and I can actually talk a little bit about the choices that we sort of made for using the Trusty Research. So one is Construction 1, so that one can make some basic thug gear. We will actually be using our Shootin' Doji, which is one of the sort of unique commanders that Shinuyama gets during expansion, and so being able to forge stuff for them is relevant. The big thing we went for is web on why we got Evocation 2.
Okay. I was wondering.
It's actually folks who watched the tournament finals may remember my web breath with Late Age 10 Chief. And web has actually been buffed in Dominion 6 in that it is 3 squares rather than 2 as it's targeting.
Oh, nice.
And so
it was good without it.
Yeah, and sort of part of my plan for this nation is you're kind of limited in how much stuff you can make that is able to fight with elites. Like we'll look at the list nations, but there's a bunch of heavy cav and things like that. But one of the ways that you can sort of counter heavy cav is take the Dai Bakemono who hit with these really big swords, do a lot of damage, but don't have the stats to really go toe-to-toe with really buffed sacreds or really blessed sacreds. The sort of concept is, if we can web them or put them to sleep with the Shootin' Doji or things like that, then we would be able to do that. So that's sort of our national defense plan. And one of the things I really love about Trusty Research is it lets you come up with sort of ideas like that and do them. So I think it was originally motivated a little bit by the mechanism of helping with expansion through, for expanders, but there's also lots of cool stuff you can do just with your mages having some specific thing that they can do that you can plan on early game.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got, it looks like reasonable starting indies, and interestingly, you've taken the archers out of the starting party, or a lot of the starting people out. It doesn't, are these for the second party? Is that the idea?
Yeah, so there's some layers of plans here. So the archers tend to be counterproductive in a party of Shinuyama melee troops because none of your troops have hats. They have pretty low armor. You tend to cause a lot of friendly fire. And also, if you attack anything that has archers, it's sort of a one-shot missile. They will counterfire at your little archers and rout them. And Shinuyama's archers are actually really good at killing barbarians because they cost like 5 gold, and they've got a bow, and that's sort of what you want to use. And I have some barbarians in my cap circle, so I'm saving them as part of a party for killing those barbarians. Other thing that we're doing is leaving behind like 7 or so of the club dudes, and have very low combat power because they've got a club. Most of the Shinuyama troops have really good weapons, but these guys Yeah, there's nothing to recommend this unit other than the cost of 5 gold in a mountain, which
Yeah.
our capital is. And
Okay, we're back.
okay, yeah.
So yeah, you're saying
right,
these
we
guys
saved
aren't
some of
worth that
those.
much. They're just kind of
Yeah,
crap
so we're
melee
saving
dudes.
them as lance catchers for our second party, which is planning to move into the heavy cav south of the capital.
Right.
And
Cool.
that's what we're doing there. The other thing I'll mention is how we spent our gold turn 1, which is that we got 4 Dai Bakemono for that second party, and we're getting, you can see we can afford 6 more, and then a ton of these O Bakemono.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to talk about how we're using the O Bakemono when they expand next turn. The other thing
I'll
is
go ahead and pull up
profit.
that. Oh,
So
yeah.
we're picking a Tuten Doji for the profit because they're a little bit more like a mage chassis. And with gear, the bonus HP and stats for profit can make that sort of a national defender type unit. So that's why we delayed a turn.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the next turn. Okay, and we're back with turn 3. We've got a battle here. So this is this first group, and you've got some club dudes who are meant to clearly just fill in the gaps here. And of course, the cool thing is you can see waiting happening as these Obakamona are wading through some of the smaller troops, it looks like.
Yeah, it's actually like a really cool combination that this edition has, because the size 2 Yari goblins get into contact, kill a little bit of stuff, and harass down other things, and then these big lumbering, sort of ogres walk in behind and bop things and get a kill despite their 10 attack skill. So it's a very sort of synergistic sort of combination.
Yeah, I mean, these guys do have a tiny bit of a harass penalty.
Also, the ones that are dead probably started with bigger harass penalties,
Yeah.
So if you try expanding with just Obakamano without the little goblins, you'll find you take much more aggression than if you have the sort of combined formation.
Okay, so looking at that battle, yeah, the Bakemono got a lot of kills. They got 23 kills between them. And you lost 7 Bakemono. Probably it's more of the bad ones.
Yeah, we started with 20 of the good ones. You can see, yeah, we didn't lose any of the good ones. So
okay, nice. So
pretty good. So that party is going to go north to try and pick up that forest mountain.
Right.
You can recruit your national unarmored Bakemono in mountains, so it's really important for us to try and beeline those, because then we can supplement our expansion with more troops.
Okay, and you've got another force here, and this is a very weird setup. So you've got lance catchers in front, then this guy who's going to cast a bunch of spells, and this guy is going to stay behind them. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. But this guy's going to stand behind, presumably even these dudes. So I'm imagining it'll wind up with like the prophet in front, this guy somewhat maybe 2 or 3 tiles behind the prophet, and then, we'll see how it works.
Yeah, so you can see how it works. I think I'll talk a little bit about our sort of routing strategy here. If you zoom out a little bit, you'll see that there's one cave entrance that we can see in that forest to our south.
Yeah.
And caves are really valuable in Dominion 6. This is a sort of standard map, so it's 16 provinces per player on the surface, and then like 30% more in the caves. And since we have good, all of our troops have 50% dark vision more or less, we really would like to get into the cave system. So we're sort of beelining that with our sort of first or second party.
Right.
Is our plan.
Okay. You're recruiting more of the Dai Bakemono and the O Bakemono.
Yeah, so our third party, like 6 Dai Bakemono, is not enough to expand. So we're sort of filling it out with a bunch of the sort of weaker but still pretty good O Bakemono, because we're still resource limited.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and go to turn 4. Anything to say on turn 3 before we close it?
I think the only thing I'll mention is, I think we haven't mentioned that. I'll talk about it as we switch turns. We haven't talked about the naming scheme. So this pretender is, King David Longbowie. It's a pun on David Bowie, and sort of a reference to the movie Labyrinth, where he's a goblin king. We originally had this plan that our Shuten Doji, who we're going to be using a lot in expansion, would be named after members of his various bands. And then, for folks who've seen a game involving Darkside Cookies, he likes to rename every commander. So you'll see that just about every mage that we have in this game has some sort of fun name. So figured I should mention that.
All right, we'll see you guys on turn 4. All right, turn 4. Apparently you traded Ulm for a black steel plate. That's interesting.
Yeah. So Ulm can make those for 2 Earth Gems each, and I ended up doing a deal with him to buy several of those. We'll be doing a big payment for them a ways later, but basically he really wants certain types of gems like Iron Forge stuff and so on, and also to be able to get hammer access early, which I might be able to roll one before him. So we sort of have a deal that I'm going to pay him 4 gems for each of those, so it's 2 gem profit for each, and he's going to send them to me during expansion. So I don't plan on this in my expansion plan, but you'll see how impactful it is to have just some basic armor on those guys.
Yeah, I just hope they don't get hit in the head. So I'm really interested to see how this expansion works, because it wasn't clear to me how much these guys... I was worried about you being defeated in detail here. If this guy were to move back a few tiles with stay behind
so they're
troops.
on guard commander, and I think the stay behind troops order is sort of intended that they will sort of stay together so that those sleep kata auras overlap.
Yeah.
And I think that this did not work.
I don't think it counts. I think what happens is that I didn't actually know this. I wasn't sure. But I don't think it counts bodyguards when it's looking at troops to stay behind.
Yeah. So what we'll find. So this is actually a replay bug, I believe, because nobody dies in the actual game. So I think.
Right, but I assume it was the same behavior.
Yeah, right? I think what happened is one of the heavy cav got by and engaged them in melee, sort of before.
Yeah.
Before they started moving forward. But to sort of talk about how the sort of student, the sort of concept is, the student doji have 2 features that are or 3 features that are sort of make them really fantastic little thuglings. One is the sleep aura that puts things to sleep, and it's especially devastating against horses on cavalry because they have really low MR, so they'll tend to fail the first check. And then they've got invulnerability, so their protection is actually 15 rather than the 1 that you see listed there. And then the third thing is the life drain attack, which does not go away if you give them a weapon. So that's armor piercing damage, and they recover half the damage dealt as HP. Even if you were to buff their strength where they were hitting for 30, they'd get like 15 HP back if they're hitting a living target.
They also have a lot of hit points for a human.
They've got a decent number of hit points. Yeah.
And decent combat stats. These are not bad either. So they're solid.
One of our goal with these guys is to be trying to sort of both be able to win fights that we couldn't win with just a line of the Dai Bakemono, and but also try to farm some hero traits with using melee.
And here, if we zoom in, we can see there's quite a few guys who are asleep. There's 6 guys on the front line, so it's doing some work.
Right, and once they're asleep, every swing from a Dai Bakemono is a kill. So it's really impactful.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. Very, very cool. Let's look at this battle. Looks like you found a mine up here too.
Yeah, it's an iron mine, so not very impactful for the early game, but potentially useful reports later.
Ooh, this looks like pretty high attrition. Yeah, the first squad's already routed. Yeah, you don't really. These are actually kind of tough provinces. These archers are kind of tearing you apart.
Yeah. I've lost expansion parties to Jaguar Tribe, which are usually sort of totally worthless. But anything that's got a lot of missile stuff can be pretty tough. For this nation.
This is probably the last type of province this party can take. Then it's going to need some pretty major reinforcements. For recruitment, looks like you're switching over to Kappa. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, so
I also like that you're running a no research thing. Like you're all into these like light thugs, and they will be really helpful in a first war situation too, potentially. So
yeah. So that sort of party is going to be the reason I'm doing Kappa is that I don't have the resources to make 10 real troops to be double bodyguard squads for them.
Oh, okay.
And Kappa are the 1 resource each, and decently durable with 50 protection. So they'll sort of help fill out the bodyguard squad.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool.
Attempting a triple expand on turn. I guess it's currently turn 4.
Yeah, that's really good.
And the only other thing to point out is if you go to Snowford, the province in the north we just took, there's 2 things of note about it. One is it has death scales, which is likely to be a well pestilence or a dying forest. And I think very few guys are diseased who weren't last turn. So anyway, I suspect a dying forest is there. And the second is that I'm making scouts here now every turn. And one of the things that's really cool about Shinuyama is that you get foreign recruit scouts in every mountain. It only costs 30 gold. And so I'm going to start trying to get intel as soon as possible.
Sweet.
And that's all I got for this turn.
Okay, we'll hop ahead to turn 5. All right, turn 5. it looks like we have a bump with Naba. So this is going to be
Indeed.
interesting. Let's see what Naba is attacking with. Oh, Sacreds.
Yeah. There's quite a bit of stuff here. I think this is 2 turns of
This,
sacred recruitment plus a starting army or something. Like it's a lot of stuff.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
You can check out the bless. Nabad's being played by Kirby, who's well known to the channel.
Yeah, and
very
he
long
likes
community member.
the Naba Ubar faction very much.
Yeah, he's a Nabad Uber specialist, and you can see it's actually a very similar concept of bless to what we
Yeah.
have: shock resistance, poison resistance, and then some other mage utility stuff. I guess, but blood surge is going to be sort of impactful.
Yeah, if I were them, I would not be picking you as a first matchup with this bless because, well, quite frankly, these guys, like, these troops will kind of suck. Like, they're going to get owned by Bakemono. So,
Yeah, I think right. He does get like a better capital than we do, and so sort of early game he might be able to outproduce us in terms of quality troops. Like his Adite swordsmen are actually pretty comparable to.
oh, come on, dude. He's not going to outproduce Shinuyama? No.
Well,
Dude, Shinuyama can just make so much stuff so quickly. I mean, you can maybe make more of those guys than you can make Dai Bakemono.
Exactly,
But
more
Bakemono,
than the Dai Bakemono. But yeah, the little
Right.
stuff, we can make a lot. That said,
Yeah.
the camel riders have been really buffed in Dominion 6 compared to how they were, because get the camel as a second unit, and the Bakemono
Right.
produce a ridiculous number of those, and they're actually pretty darn scary.
Yeah, that's true, because you do not like missile troops.
We do not like missile troops, and we also, if you're playing as swarm tactics with little goblins, well, their cavalry are sort of a similar quality unit per square, and so on.
Yeah.
So it's a little risky.
So let's do a quick gold calculation here. These are 25 apiece. These are 25 apiece. These are 40 apiece. So he brought twice as much stuff as you. Yeah. I think you actually had better stuff. It's just he had more.
Yeah. This is he beelined the cave entrance just like we did, and he was willing to sacrifice expansion speed elsewhere to do it, and I was not, and so he won. Probably a good way to think about it.
Don't fuck with Kirby. Interesting. Yeah, okay, so after this, do you guys make any kind of agreement with Kirby, or is it just...
Yeah, so I chatted with him. I basically told him I'd really like to get one of the mountains on that southern border, because the one just west of that is also a mountain. And he said, yeah, that's sure. Actually, I have parties elsewhere. You can actually take both of the ones on the west, and we can just expand on other places. I think his objective was the cave, which probably comes with 1 to 7 indie provinces, depending what's under there. And my taking the position that
Okay, sorry, we game crashed for a second. We're back up and going though. Yeah, so we were talking about how he kind of made a commitment to go here, and then you guys negotiated that you get both of these and he'll expand elsewhere. But it's kind of even though you get 2 out of 3 of the border, it's still a win because he's getting the cave system. So
yeah, it's favorable for him, but I think there is sort of this aspect that because that may be his only entrance to that cave, if he spends a bunch of resources going and taking provinces there, and then we go to war, I just need to raid that forest to cut all of the income from that until he gets support up there. So it is, I think he's going to have a lot of incentive to not want to start a big fight with me.
Right.
I think it's sort of a good condition for a stable border there.
Yeah. Let's watch this battle here, because this is our first, like, mostly Dai Bakemono expansion. Ooh, those archers do not like that shooting doji.
Yeah, he's got 15 protection, so he's not very vulnerable, but he does appear to have been chosen.
Yeah.
And I think in this replay he did not kill anything, and that looks like that's what happened in the real thing.
Okay. So we're doing another expansion over here. You've still got them on stay behind troops, which is a little strange.
Yeah, well, so the stay behind, the reason that the previous stay behind troops thing didn't work in that replay is that my little goblin path to catch the lances blocked their cavalry from reaching us. I think the plan of this is for them to reach us, but also note that I think the prophet who's not moving forward is on spell. It doesn't have any bodyguards, so I think both of those two shooting doji will advance with their bodyguards.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be better just put them on attack closest. That way, you make sure they target the same guy.
Yeah, I
That
don't
might be fine.
remember. I remember I had problems with that, and I think it's that you don't want the Suten Doji, if they don't have armor, running in ahead of the rest of their party. They'll often die in the first round if you do that, and so this was in my testing sort of
But
better
I
way to.
don't think but they're going to run forward. They're not going to stay behind troops. Like, this actually won't work from what we saw.
Well, yeah,
We'll see.
you may be right. Well, we'll see.
We
It
can
might be
look
that
at it here.
I
Oh, no, he's on
yeah,
attack closest. Okay.
yeah, yeah. I think
Oh,
it might be
was he
that
out in front?
this is
Like a big Chad? No, he's not. Okay.
yeah, yeah. I had him on attack, but behind.
But this time he's on attack, and these guys are on guard. Nice. Okay.
We'll see how that.
Well, this will be
goes.
interesting because we can see how they behave differently here. Obviously, they're going to wait 5 turns to here. So we might not be able to see. And I'm guessing these guys are going to come hit the barbs with whatever you're recruiting this. Oh, no, probably not.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like you're making the barb
Those
stuff
guys
yet.
are not going to hit the barbs. I think they're just going to reroute around to some other border. Other thing to mention, we have a couple events this turn, one of which is significant, and not the usual. I said that one.
Yeah.
That's 5 water gems, but that first event in Histra, that's the province south of the capital. I used to always ignore these like Vengeful Crone has cursed the land events as not being important, but it turns
No,
out that it's a very good predictor of where you're going to get a bunch of nasty indie attacks in the future. So,
yeah. Yeah. Well, and the income, the unrest is bad. So,
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, getting an unrest event on your cap, like turn 2 or 3, is kind of game losing. It's really bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that is not visible is I'm recruiting, I think, a mundane commander to help with troop logistics somewhere, but otherwise it's basically just the cap recruitment. And I think.
All right, let's go to 6 then, I think. Okay. All right, turn 6 and a big shipment from Ulm coming in. 3 black steel plates.
Yeah. And we have 2 successful expansions. And
yeah, let's watch some of these. So this one is this is with the Chad shooting Doji up front.
Yeah, so that's the guy with
leading
armor,
the charge. Yeah.
Mine being in front. And if you take a look at him right now, he's got a lot more than max HP.
Right.
But again, we're having a replay thing, and that we did not route in the actual battle, but apparently we could have. So.
Yep. There's just different RNG, different outcome.
Yeah, I will say that the replays in the current version are much less favorable than just about every test that I did. But we'll see a bunch of things turn from victory to defeat in replays.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact that the game version, Lucid is running this on a couple releases later than the version that we did.
Yeah.
And the way that the game runs things is the replays are calculated by running the battle as though it happened right now or whatever.
Right. It's worth noting. It's a kind of weird mechanic. It was something I didn't fully understand, but like when you put people in guard commander, you don't see like the morale penalty for like bad leader or whatever. It just like blinks out, and that kind of it always made me assume that like, oh, they're like they don't suffer morale penalty. It's like a different. I always assumed it was kind of like a different morale system for being in guard commander. My understanding is that they still get normal small squad size penalty. So if you only have like 3 guys on guard commander, you get a small squad penalty. And I think what we'll see happen here is like basically like
one of them dies and
one of them dies and then they get the small squad penalty and then the rest run. So it's very risky, I think, doing guard commander expansion. Another thing you can do, and I think it would totally be worth considering doing on these guys, is actually splitting them up into squads of 1, and then you just use however many. And they might route individually, but they won't trigger each other to route. This was a strategy that Arco used with Yis in expanding, because they have such high defense and stuff like that. They really don't route very often, even as a squad of 1. So I don't know how well that would work here, but yeah. But yeah, that was the failure mode that we saw in this seed.
Yep.
And very similar expansion here. So stay behind troops. Are they in front leading the charge, or are they staying behind troops? No, they were in front. Yeah. I think this is functionally the same as holding attack closest.
Yeah. I think the stay behind troops may be primarily relevant when one is having them like sit behind something on attack orders. If your goal is to have them not engage in melee, but just stand around and have their sleep cloud, which does sometimes hit 2 squares away from them, put some stuff to sleep, which is one of the Like one of the tactics that you could do with these is use the archer ones instead. Just make a line of them and
Yeah,
have a couple of
that's what I was going to
behind
mention,
them.
actually. Was that like, yeah, if you're
The
going to
reason
do the
we're
stay behind troop, you do the archers. But
Yeah, the reason we're not doing that is they cost more resources, and we just can't make enough to sort
Yeah.
of fill out the parties that way.
okay. Okay, so this squad's actually coming up here to take this heavy cav province.
It's just
Oh no, that's a ping. Okay, yeah, lots of heavy calves, so probably dangerous. Only one expansion this turn. Moving to expand to this farmland.
Yeah, I think we're actually maybe planning to head east first to sort of near the Marignan border. Yeah, so sort of what we're gathering sort of a fourth on the east and then a fourth also on the west, I think, for targeting those barbarians on the border with whatever our western neighbor is. As you can see here, we're starting to see.
Yeah. So is that for the barbs or is that for a first war?
That's for the barbs. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and I guess we're still thinking expansion. We're not thinking first war targets yet. Are you thinking with this build you want to play very aggressive, like put somebody down pretty much the second expansion's done, or do you want to like build up a bit?
I think that both options are viable. You know, if we get a bunch of rich provinces, this nation can spend an infinite amount of gold, but really getting some infrastructure up to make mages is great. But if I see an opportunity for being a first war early, you know, foreign recruit is very powerful in Dominion 6 for being able to bring an overwhelming number of troops, and so that's certainly on the menu of options. But we don't
and the reason I'm asking, of course, is because you don't have to, but especially with foreign recruit, you know, a lot of times in expansion with a lot of nations, you might want to wait for your second fort to get up to start really making more troops. With nations that have foreign recruit, you do have the option to decide very early, I'm going to rush somebody down. You might not know who it is, but you're like turning on the faucet real early.
Yeah, so that's why our priority is so focused on getting mountains. So that one is a mountain. The one just east of it is a mountain. That we're pinging this turn. The north one in our cap circle is a mountain.
Yeah, and normally you make the Yari guys, but I guess depending on you're fighting, the shortbow could be better.
Yeah, but against, you know, sort of barbarians, cavemen, those sorts of very low protection things that you don't want to be in melee with, the shortbows are great. So yeah, our current goal is to secure as many mountains as we can so that we have the capability to do foreign recruit and then sort of go from there.
Yeah, this is a mountain. This is a mountain.
And one
so you might get 5 mountains. One in the east?
Yeah, the far eastern center one. Yeah.
Oh, this one, yeah. Oh, right, and you're positioning to take that this
where we're
time.
heading right now, exactly.
Yeah, this also is a large province, too. You can tell from the houses. So, all right. Well, this has been fun, and yeah, I think we'll call it for the episode here. But next time we'll probably wrap up expansion and then talk about the first war targets.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely have some excitement with various neighbors. So should be interesting.
Okay, sweet. See you then. Cheers.